beautiful souls out there. I hope you're able to get out in nature like Starlight was. So, yes, Starlight was. I'll tell you what, I am a nature girl, and that is where you'll find me. You know, where's Starlight? Go out in nature somewhere. You know, you'll find Starlight somewhere. But anyway, I love you so much, and thank you for all of you who've been here. Yes, you know, and you from the beginning, you know, and you're still here supporting, loving, supporting Starlight. I appreciate you, and all the other people who join me in between, or, you know, maybe you just joined me now. And so, yes, maybe you just joined me now, and thank you for all the new subscribers. Yay! Woo-hoo! So thank you for all of you who just joined this family of love, light, and peace. This is about being the change that you want to see in the world. And so there's so many different angles, and being aware of different things is what my YouTube channel is, you know, because if you believe a lie, how are you going to work on yourself? So Starlight talks about almost anything on my YouTube channel. But welcome to all of you, woo-hoo, that are new subscribers to my YouTube channel. And a big, huge thank you to all of you, you, who watch my videos and who subscribe to my YouTube channel. Plus, those of you out there, all of you who give Starlight thumbs up. So I appreciate all of you, and thank you for those of you who leave me a message. Yes, thank you. Those are the brave ones out there. Those are the brave ones who leave messages. They're like, I don't care what I need to get to talk to Starlight. I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna say something to Starlight. So I appreciate you guys and girls out there that are brave enough to put yourself out there and leave me a comment. And also those of you out there, all of you guys and girls, thank you for those of you who share my videos. It is so important to share, you know, because when we share, we feel good about what we're doing, and other people will enjoy what you're sharing with them. And you never know what people really need. And it's just a push of a button, you know, to do that. And you have this is not all about Starlight. How you help me out, we all are a part of this together, you know, so I can't do this without you, and I appreciate all of you, and I just want to say thank you to all of you, for being here and being brave and working on yourself. Thank you. It means so much, not just to me, not just to you, but other people in the world, because, you know, everybody needs this. You know, imagine a world if we all just got serious and worked on our asses and started making changes and started treating people kind out in public. You know, imagine a world like that. We can do that. You know, I'm in the 5th dimension. So everywhere I go, I do send love out in the world. And today somebody says, thank you for being so kind. You know, we really need that. Yes, we do. We really need that. So really, that is a part of how you can actually be the change in the world, is by being kind, being thoughtful out in public. So anyway, and also before I start the video, is if anyone would love to, you know, have me make a video, is, hey, be brave. I will make a video just for you, like I am tonight, because somebody reached out and they have something that they're going through, or they've had this going on for who knows how long, you know, and so I'm here to help that person out tonight. But if you got any questions, or you want to talk about something, don't be afraid, you know, because fear is false evidence appearing real, and you don't want to be in that category. And when you let go of fear and you face your fears, you know what? You might get the answer, you know, the answer that you're looking for. Your whole life could change just because you let go of something it's an illusion. So you got to be brave out there. And so also, if you don't want to send a message here on my YouTube channel, you can through my Instagram, and that is at 1995 Starlight, or on Facebook, and that is Kathy with a K Dingman Starlight. So besides that, we're not done yet, guys and girls. Is if anyone would love to send any love donations on my Cash App, you can, and I will have that information here. Ding! There it is. And thank you for those of you who have a while back, or maybe you helped me along the way. Guess what? You are a part of this. God knows who helped out, so you will be blessed, or you've already been blessed. God already, blessed you in one way or another. And so I love you all so much. And so today I am going to answer a question that somebody asked me, and it's a very serious topic, and I am going to make that tonight. So it's about people who, it's like, why do things happen? Like, why does shit happen to me? How come, I can't seem to get happy, be happy in life, that there's so many things going on in my life that, and I know what that's like. I know what it's like, wanting to give up. I know what it's like not wanting to be here on planet Earth. That was me. What year was it? Wow. Well, I definitely know I was like that in around 2016, 17, That is when Starlight, and that's not the first time. Starlight started off like at 10 years old, wanting to end my life. Oops. Now, that's not easy for me to admit to. It's like, but I believed way back then at 10 years old, I didn't really, it's the going through hell, even my parents, they didn't even want me. They tried to get rid of me when I was in my mother's belly, and that I didn't really even know any of that, as a 10-year-old, but I did find that out later on in my life when one of my family members, actually my dad, told me, it's just hearing those words come out of his mouth. Yeah, we were trying to get rid of you, So not just me, but there's a whole lot of people all around the world that they feel the same way. They don't want to be here. They're tired. They've been fighting the fight, and just trying to make it through one day at a time. And it's unbearable at times, where people have a hard time, trying to get any satisfaction in life, trying to be fulfilled. And it really, a lot of people have different backgrounds, different stories of where they came from, what kind of families, because a lot of times that's where it starts from is, but not always. There's families out there that are very abusive to their children, weren't good parents at all. And so a lot of, children, they turn into adults, and, and then it just seems to continue, things don't seem to get better because now they're drawn to the wrong kind of people. Hang on, Starlight's got to scoot up. But that is not always the case. Sometimes it's because people have some kind of health issues that, they were born a certain way, and it's out of their control. And it is very sad these days because a lot of doctors, it's hard to find a good doctor, isn't it? Isn't it hard? It's very challenging. Right now, I'm actually looking for a doctor. I just don't want just any doctor. And, so it's hard to find a good doctor to really get the kind of care that you really need as far as health goes, And there's a lot of people out there in the world. I used to work for them, is people with disabilities. I have a sister that's blind and handicapped. She was born that way. And of course, why? Because you know what? They didn't want her either. So not only my mom tried to have a miscarriage having me, my mom tried to have a miscarriage with my sister. I came out okay, but my sister didn't. My sister will never know what it's like to be in a in a romantic relationship. Never. And there's a lot of people out there, they don't even know what they're missing. They don't even understand to even comprehend what couples are, what that could be like, because they don't understand. My sister does not understand. She gets feelings of love, different, they're more in tune with energy than, people, it's the energy, just like kind of the way animals are, so the thing is that no matter who you are or what kind of background, you're not the only one that's dealing with something or many obstacles in your life. And what I've learned on this journey, thanks to my mentor, Infinite Waters Rouse Smart, is that, what? My whole life I was like, why did this happen? My upbringing, the horrible stuff that I went through. No matter who you are, everybody's got a story, and a lot of people are suffering out in the world. But what you got to be, mindful about, you're not the only one. There's a lot of other people, and you got to be careful with this, because I was there. I had to go through the hell that I went through so I can be who I am today to help other people. Imagine that. I had to go through the pain and the suffering of so many different, many things in my life. So many different types of abuse from different types of people. Like if I listed I could sit there for a long time just telling you all the bad things that has happened to me, and I have tried to end my life many times in my life, because I was giving up. I didn't want to have that pain anymore in my life, and but you know what? God had another plan. God had a plan that I didn't see. My whole life I wanted to help people out. I wanted to write a book. I always wanted to help people out my whole life. And going through this stuff that I went through, I used to try to talk to people. Some people would listen. They actually would listen to me. But of course it was all horrible stuff, I needed help. I was reaching out for help. And what ends up happening, and what can happen to many of us out there, and I've done this my whole, well, not my whole life, but when I was younger, being a kid, especially being a kid, being a teenager, being a young adult, even when I even matured, I don't want to say older, but, throughout my life, is I was feeling bad for myself. And I didn't realize what was going on, because I was so hurt inside that I was having a lot of pity parties. And I'm not saying anybody here is having one, but I'll tell you what, when you reprogram, when you actually rewind and you just think of all the negative things that's happened to you, even like from birth all the way through, and what people say, and how it made you feel, and how you don't get, where you feel like you're not getting the love and support that you need. And, the failed relationships, is that you can totally go down in a spiral of making it worse. And that is what happens to people that want to end their lives, is that they have like a recorder in their head. And of course, those days, I didn't know not all my thoughts were my own. I didn't know all my thoughts. I thought all my thoughts were my own. I mean, believe me, I thought a lot. I had a lot of stuff going on, and it was really challenging to have family members always bring up stuff, and bring, it's like if I had a sore that was healing, they'd rip it off, and I had to start over, and it was a nonstop thing. So we got to really be careful. We got to focus on, the positives. You got to really focus on what is it about you that you love about yourself. People have gifts out there, and they might not even know how to use them gifts. There's ways that you can feel better about your life. And, and I'm not saying that it's going to be easy, but if we just keep on looking at in the past, or even right now with the struggles that, people can have every day, like I heard somebody mention about having seizures. Is it possible that you might want a second opinion with a doctor? My brother had seizures, my sister had seizures. So I do come from a family that did have seizures. Now my brother, he had a certain medication that had snake venom, and I don't know what that medication was. He had some kind of fits that he would have. He couldn't go out and get a car. And yes, he would complain about it. But everything happens for a reason in our life. My brother used to come to me and get mad at me because I had a car. But I worked for it, I didn't get that handed to me, So it's easy to always look at, especially when you're in a low time, it's always only to focus on what's wrong, what's going wrong in your life. But you need, and this is what I've been learning through my mentor is, I had to learn to believe in myself. Things can change for you. But if you're always thinking of how bad it is every day and not understanding that, there's things that you can do, you got to kind of get outside the box. And I don't know what your age is. I don't know where you are as far as, what age are you, because it does matter. Because, there's things out there, the universe, there's no accidents or coincidences in this reality. And we all have gifts. We all have things that we can do, and show people, or not show people, but to bring peace and happiness into our life. So going to a doctor and trying to find the right kind of doctor to help out, going out for, groups out there. They have groups. You need support. You can't do this all on your own. If you got good family support, great, but not everybody does. And the thing is that you got to understand this whole reality that we're living in has been set up. It wants you to give up. It wants you to end your life. Those are the challenges. I used to say, why did this shit happen my whole life? I can't believe it. The family I came from, the stuff nobody would believe. Nobody would believe, even my therapist when I was opening. So like I was saying is like, why did all this stuff, why was I born this way, And I'll tell you what, you got to really be careful, and you might have heard this before, is, what? I had to really look at things differently, because I might have thought I went through hell and my life sucked, but you know what I had to learn? There's other people that got it way worse than what you have it. You might think, hey, my Starlight, it doesn't get any worse. There's always somebody that's got it worse, so that is why I'm always so grateful, and that's why I've learned to actually take care of myself throughout my life, is to be grateful for everything. And the other thing is we need to learn, which I've been doing this for years now, is about being positive. If you are just, looking at, hey, look at how bad my life is, and I'm grateful that people reach out and talk to me and ask questions, because that's what's needed, is that, we got to be careful with that, because we could be positive. There's times that, if we're like with Starlight, if there was a man, right, and I got with him, you know, we were meeting each other, trying to learn about each other. And because I've done the work and I've been growing, you know, learning to do different things. And if I had just heard him talk, and if I heard how negative he was about all this stuff, you know, it would turn me off of even wanting to have a relationship with him. Because, you know, it's not always about what we think it's about, you know, why you have a hard time with relationships. It could be something even different, you know, other things that could happen, you know, so, and there's, not everything can be explained, but by turning things around and having a positive mindset, you know, and look at really all the great things that you got going for you, you know, and I don't know who you are. You know, take some time out and think of things, you know, of who you are and what you can do and all the things that you love about yourself. It's really more important to really focus on what you love about yourself. Now, I might not be in your shoes. I might not, and I don't know what you're going through, but I know what it's like, and I know what it used to be like, that I didn't want to be here on planet Earth, starting at 10 years old, all the way up until 2016, 17, you know, and so I do know what it's like being fed up with life. But it was a trick. They want people to end their life. They want this to, you know, these things happen, you know, but you really got to be positive and, you know, think of, like, even I might not be in your shoes. I couldn't I couldn't walk in your shoes and you couldn't walk in mine. Is that, I say that is because, you know, God has things that we, even though I don't know what it's like to be in your shoes, is that, you know what? There's people out there, all they want is to be in a healthy relationship. And they could have health issues, what kind of they believe is the reason why they can't have a healthy relationship with somebody. But then there's other people that have a normal life, you know, I say normal, they don't have any health conditions. But they complain because of the relationships that they've been into and how abusive they, you know, that one was abusive, all this stuff, you know, so it is kind of weird how life goes a lot of times, is that there could be people that has had many relationships but don't want nothing to do with being in one. And then there's other people that might have not really had that, to be able to have a relationship, and they want it so bad, but you don't know the things that people went through in relationships. And they were really there to teach them lessons. And that's why a lot of people, they go through so much, because it's lessons that they need to learn, you know, for relationships. And you could be an awesome person and not even have any health problems and still have a hard time having a relationship and being happy. Starlight has not been with a man since 2018. I haven't gone out with a man, and I have not had sex with any man from 2018 till now. I'm losing time now, so how many years is that? You know? Because you know what? There's a lot of people out there that are lonely. They want to be in a relationship, but they're sick and tired of the shit that's out there. So, you know, it is something how this works in this life. You know, there's people that want that, and the best relationship you can have is with yourself. You know, and that's what I had to learn on this journey. I had to learn to love myself. I had to learn to love me. You know, I'm actually helping a girl like right now in this area, you know, because she's made some wrong choices like we all have. You know, hang on, Starlight has got to get her. Ooh. So, that is where you want to start. Learn to have a good relationship with you, because there's so many people out there, they want to go out, and get that relationship. And everybody has a different reason why. What do you want in a relationship? What is it that you're looking for? What is it that you're willing to give? So all of us, no matter who you are, no matter what kind of health issues you have, it's best to work on yourself first. If you don't have a good doctor, there could be a doctor that could help you out where you're not having so many seizures. Because my brother had those. They gave him medication, to help him out. I don't like medication, but I do know that there's times that people really seriously do need medication. It's not a money-making thing. It's that they really do need it. They wouldn't be able to live. They wouldn't be able to survive without it. But that is one thing. You might want to look for a different doctor to get the right kind of care. So that is not there's beautiful people out there. If you work on yourself and find out who you really are and work on being positive and think about all the beautiful things, who you are as a human being, because it's so easy for any of us to, because I was there. There used to be this one song when I grew up. There's actually a song, Kathy's Clown, and it's my party and I'll cry if I want to, cry if I want to, cry if I want to. You would cry too if it happened to you. Do 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 do, bo do 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 do. So that song, Shirley used to sing that song growing up. You've got to be careful, because I'll tell you, that dark force out there, that's exactly where they want you to be. They want you to, I understand that you got problems, and I understand that you got issues. We all have those. It's different for everyone. There's people that have scars and they've been gone through hell, like I did. But you know what? I'm a living proof that you can turn that around. I gave up on men in 2018. I said, you know what? I'm not going to go for those kind of men. Because God could give you a girl, but you know what? She might not be even good for you. So we got to learn to be really grateful for everything in our life. Our body, yes, you do have problems that you're dealing with, but guess what? You got to be careful. If you have a tendency, because, sometimes medications do this to people. It gets them depressed. Your thoughts are not all your own. This is what they want. There's a force out there. They want you to end your life. So you got to be really strong. And, I do the I am affirmations every day. And I'll tell you what, I'm amazed. I do that throughout the day. I do it as many times as I can. And it's changed my life. Are you willing to work on yourself? You know what? If you focus on working on yourself, learn how to do meditations and stuff like that, and I don't know anything about your health. I am not a doctor in that area, but there's things out there that, people out there that can help you. You got to research these things. There's help out there. You just got to be willing to look for that and search it out. And also, be careful about, not saying you are, because I was guilty, 10 years old. I'll tell you a quick story. There was a time that I was miserable when I was younger because a lot of shit was happening. Like I said, with my parents wanting to end, have a miscarriage, which I didn't even know that. But, I got brothers, mom and dad. And so I went through a lot of hell as a child. And there was a day that I was so upset and so freaking mad at the world. I really was. I was like, man, my life sucks. I lived in fear, living at home. I didn't want to go to school because kids would call me names and call me a retard. I had no escape except for in the woods. That's why Starlight's a nature girl today. And so one day I was just like, bah humbug me. I just like, bah humbug, I just was going on and on and on how bad my life was. And it was. There was no doubt that my life sucked as a child. And we worked a lot as a child, and came from a poor family. My family didn't have a lot of money. I felt like I was always missing out, the other kids, my mother, I felt like a freaking clown going to school the way I was dressed, not having enough clothes to wear to go to school, not, being called a retard, being put in a retard class, and I just really was complaining so much. So I was like, you know what? I didn't want anybody over here. I just want to be alone. And I was in a bah humbug mood that whole day for hours, complaining about how my life sucked, and it did. And I wasn't being grateful about anything. I wasn't being grateful for that I had clothes. I wasn't being grateful that I had a house to live into. I was, because there's people out in different countries. I seen the commercials when growing up. Here I came from a poor family and I wanted to help people like in Africa somewhere. My dad, can we send money to those kids? They were naked outside and they were dirty and, they were getting, they didn't have running water like we had, and they were out in mud puddles and, and I wanted to help them out. So that day, I decided to climb up this cherry tree, and I wish nobody was around. I was mad at everybody in my family because they all did something except for my sister. And, you gotta be careful. If we complain so much, we can make things worse because what you put out, you're gonna get back. So, and I'm not saying you are, it's just that anybody that is going through a lot in their life, multiple things that are going on in their life, and they lost hope, they don't see a clear vision of how their life can change, is you can make it worse. You can make it real. You think it's bad now? It could even get worse. So Starlight was hanging around like a monkey on a cherry tree branch, and God's like, oh, you wish nobody was around, huh? I heard what you said, Starlight, but I didn't know God. The cherry branch broke with me hanging onto it. I landed on my back holding the branch, and I lost my air. I couldn't even breathe. It took my breath right out. And you know what? At that very moment, even though I was going through hell as a child, I couldn't breathe. I was crawling around like a little baby, trying to get my breath back. I was scared. I wish somebody was around, but nobody was. I manifested that. I was in a bah humbug mood. And so you really got to be careful of your thoughts because they are so super powerful. You got to look at the positives. And I'm grateful that people reach out to me and talk because this is how I can help you out. Because if you never reached out, you would never get this information. It's not easy information. That's why I wanted to be in here, in a library to do this because it's a serious topic. You need to work on yourself and really appreciate who you are as a human being. Start thinking about other people out in the world who have it worse than what you have. Because all of us can have think that, hey, I don't want to be here. But you know what? If you work on yourself and you love yourself, you know what? I am to the point, it's so weird. I used to have a hard time with this, always wanting to be with a man so I can have sex. Oh man, I wish I was in and this happens to a lot of people. I wish I was in a relationship, because I kind of miss having sex with a man, you know. I would go on dating sites and I put myself in risk with so many men out there. It's amazing that I'm alive today because you got to really be careful because sometimes, we can make things worse in our life. We've got to really learn to be grateful and thank God for what is going right. Thank God that you're not like that person over there, There's people that are in wheelchairs, without a leg, an arm. There was a lady that was on a video one time and she had no arms. There's people that are out there. You gotta love yourself. That's the best relationship you can have. And I mentioned about, wanting to be in a relationship, with a great guy and be able to, experience what is sex like. But you know what? I got over that hump big time. I'm not thinking about sex anymore to why I want to be with a man, because that's a lot of times what happens to people is that they want that too. They want that. That's why a lot of people, they get desperate and they do a lot of foolish things just to try to get with somebody because they want to have sex. They want to have a good relationship, but you really need to work on yourself. You really need to believe in yourself and love yourself because that's the greatest relationship you can have is with you. And that's what I learned. I am as happy as can be, and I haven't been with a man in all these years. It's no longer about sex anymore. It's different. Everything's different. And the more I work on myself, and the more grateful I get, and the more positive I think, I'll tell you what, I'm living my greatest life. And I'm not physically in a relationship right now. I needed to work on myself. You'd be surprised how your life can change if people would work on themselves and how, you might have different health problems. What if it went away? Because it's a mindset. It's a lot of things, and I'm not saying everything is, but when we start thinking positive and dreaming about the possibilities of things turning out good for us and, looking at things differently and saying, you know what? I desire somebody out there and I'm going to work on myself and I'm going to make that happen. I believe in myself. Yeah, I got stuff I'm dealing with, but you know what? There's beautiful people. I got another story. I'm going to do this. Would you believe Starlight worked for handicapped people like I told you? Now I've only told one person this story, so now here I am publicly going to tell you my story. I was single, and I worked for a lot of handicapped people, all kinds of different, people that had, mental illnesses or whatever, all kinds of stuff. I was being trained how to take care of these people. Well, I ended up meeting a man that he had a football accident when he was a teenager, having a great life at school, at football, and he landed on his head and it paralyzed him. That was it, He's been in places now, the rest of it, there's things that happen because then other people can learn from these things, these people, and things that happen, and it teaches us to be really grateful for everything that we have. But this man, I worked with him every day. Monday through Friday, I would have the weekends off. Every day. You know what? This sounds crazy. This man couldn't eat by himself. He had to have somebody to actually hand feed him every day. He couldn't, He could move his arms and stuff like that, but he couldn't go to the bathroom by himself. He had to have help, He couldn't clean himself. He had to have somebody do that for him. He couldn't have a relationship either, because of the situation where he was. And Starlight, actually, crazy it sounds, I was single and I was falling in love with this man, my heart went out to this man. And you know what? I went through this for a period of time. I wanted to, like to marry this man. It sounds crazy. Doesn't it sound crazy that I wanted to marry a man that couldn't walk? He was in a wheelchair, I wanted to take care of him. And it wasn't about sex. So I say that is because you got to believe there's someone out there just for you. Here I was willing to take a man in my life, a long time ago, where I was willing to give up my life to be just to take care of this man that needed help. Because my heart is that big. So you got to change your mindset on how you think, because all your thoughts are not your own. There are women out there that understand. And you know what? They get tired of being used by men. They get tired of this and that, being abused by men, going through this by men, just like there's men out there that get tired of women being this way or that way, always wanting their money. Not that all women are like that, and not that all men are abusive. But I'm telling you, if you worked on your heart and you worked on your, how you see the world, is that your life can turn around. You have something to offer, but you got to find it. It's all inside of you. So, don't get mad at the world or God, because that's what happens to a lot of people, is that there are people that have it worse. And that's not always easy to hear when we think we really have it so bad, because I was there. I know what it's like. I've had lots of pity parties in my life. And it's okay to say, hey, yeah, my life, is the way it is. But you can change that around by looking at things differently, thinking outside the box, And I don't have all the pieces because I don't know enough about the person that I'm reaching out to, you. But the best relationship you can have is with yourself, So learn more about you, and, you can do I am affirmations. They're powerful. Gotta let go of negative thoughts when they come in, because it can happen, but you can take your power back by not, looking at like your life sucks. You could change that around. I was there because you know what? My whole life, every time, that's what in my past, trying to find a man. My brother always said, wow, you always seem to draw the wrong ones in all the time. What is, like I had a magnet for these kind of men. But now that I'm working on myself, now I know the kind of man that I desire in my life, because now I know more of who I really am. So don't give up, try to get some help with a doctor, because there's got to be something to help you out, and learn more about whatever it is that you're dealing with. And I don't know what your age is, I would watch videos, I would, research this stuff out, get to know more about you, your birth sign, what your name is. You got talents, there's things that you can do, you can become somebody, by working on yourself and loving yourself and accepting yourself. You'd be surprised the magic that happens when you do, because I'm blown away. I now am able to say, thank you, God, for giving me this opportunity to live the life that I'm living right now. But I couldn't say that in 2017. I couldn't say that in 2018, And really, it really put myself in bad situations by wanting to end my life. Ended up being in a psych hospital, So count your many blessings, you got to really look at the positivity things that are going right for you. You can turn this around. Nobody else can do it but you. You're the one that has the power to, take back your life. And if I was gonna, I was falling in love with a man that was handicapped. He couldn't walk. He couldn't feed himself. He couldn't clean up. There's other women out there. But if you work on yourself and you show yourself who you could become, you'd be surprised what God can actually do for you and help you out. So anyway, I really hope this really helps anyone out there, but this video is mainly meant for somebody that asked a question, really needed some help. So I really hope if anybody else has gone through stuff like this, where you don't think you really have anything to give out in the world and you might want to give up in life, you're tired of your life being a certain way, is that it's a lot of a mindset. Loving yourself is, the greatest thing that you can do. God first and you. But I would really suggest to really find out more about you and be real, be authentic, and work on being positive and looking at all the great and mighty things that you can do. And because we all have talent, sometimes we haven't even tapped into what we're really capable of doing. So I love you so much. I know this is a super long video, but I love you all. And this is Starlight. Namaste. This is Starlight, love, light, and peace.